Good morning, and welcome to all of those of you joining me live in the heart space and to those of you joining me via recording for today. It's Magic in Mind. It is full moon week, so we are preparing for a lovely full moon in Tewaz, and we are exploring the topic of divine timing in the context of our magician selves. And this is a weighty topic. There is so much that I could have brought to this session. So I wanted to ask you a question as you arrive. Give me a wave as you arrive. Let me know how you're doing. And the question I wanted to ask you is, have you experienced divine timing in the last couple of days, in the last week? Is there a moment where you're like, yeah, that really felt like divine timing to me? And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of a definition of divine timing a little bit later. But at this point, when you think about what does divine timing mean to me, when did you last experience it? Because I was preparing for this live last week, and as I was preparing, I had a little message come in from a member of our community, and we'd been planning to meet up to discuss a potential collaborative project, and I had said, I'll put in a meeting in the diary and all of those things, and then I hadn't done it. Which I will come back to in terms of divine timing. And then I was like, just gotta do it. It's going to be awful because you're late and you should have done it. And I messaged and I said, this is when we can meet up. And she came back and she said, talk about divine timing. This is the perfect moment to actually use those words. I was like, yeah. And I think it does come up for us in that context, in the context of what I would think about as being probably the way that most of us think about divine timing now, which is when an opportunity presents itself at just the right moment. Not necessarily the one that we were expecting it to come at, but actually, for whatever reason, if it had come at the time that we thought that it was going to come, it wouldn't have worked. It just lands at the right moment for us. And Candice is saying, definitely experience divine timing. It's always so magical. It is, isn't it? And I think maybe part of the purpose for divine timing is to remind us that magic is available in the world. It's a possibility. So as I said, we are in full moon week, and we're going to be looking at one of the reasons that we're looking at the magician this month particularly, and why the themes that we're looking at have come up, is because through the course of this month we have Frigg's chariot and Odin's chariot are both in retrograde at the moment, so they are on retreat. The two rulers, the leaders of the pantheon of the northern tradition are on retreat. They are absent, and what this means is that in the context of our personal birth runes, if you know your personal birth runes, our sun rune and our lunar rune, and to a certain extent our first Fred and our Norna's gift, but I'm not going to go into those in so much detail, are more dominant for us at this time, because there is less external, I don't want to say the word pressure, that doesn't seem right. There's less just external presence of other influencing factors. So you imagine that Odin and Frigg are both holding these collective spheres of our direction, and looking to support us in our evolutionary pathways, looking to help humanity at a time when we probably need it quite a lot. And they are there and they're doing that. But Odin and Frigg, to my mind, both exemplify a healthy magician persona, because both of them take leaves of absence. Odin more so than Frigg. Now they take leaves of absence where they say, you've got this, you're okay, and they let go of the reins. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. So their influence is less strong at this point. So our personal birth runes, apologies, I've got some ping, I don't know why that is. We shall, I think I've just got some messaging going on Facebook at the same time. Their influence is a little bit less. So we're feeling that in terms of our personal birth runes. So we might feel the influence of our own personal birth runes more strongly at this time. And because of that, this is such a weighty topic. I'm going to do an additional live for those of you on the Birth Rune Soul Journey program about the way in which our sun rune and our lunar rune and our first thread and our Nornis gift can be felt more strongly at this time, and what that can mean for us. But it also means that the sun's energy and the moon's energy, as they are in this present moment, are also more strong, and they're directing more fully at this point. So the sun this week is transitioning from an Ansus, from the rune of communication and inspiration and ideas, into Rado, the rune of ritual and motion and the road and the journey. So we're being asked to take action. And that's important when we think about this as the magician, the sphere of the magician who takes action and initiates change. So not only are we more on our own in this, we're being asked to take control a little bit more. And I've talked about this quite a lot in the preceding 2 weeks, about how powerful this period of time is for us in terms of setting intentions where we actually act on those intentions, and we are creating blueprints for the way that our lives are going to be moving forward. Right? So Maggie's saying, I feel more on my own at the moment. Definitely, yeah. I think that can it can be helpful if we know that there's a purpose to that, because it can feel lonely and isolating. And actually, to think, no, there will be a resurgence. There will be a point when that doesn't feel as lonely or isolating. But at this point, the gods are saying, you've got this. We trust you. You know, you can do this. So it's like setting an energetic pattern at the moment that you want to come forward more. And so the sun transitioning from Ansus into Rado is important. And then we have the full moon in Tewas. Let me actually get the runes. So this is Rado, our rune of the road. You can see the word road actually comes from it. Road, ride, both come from that. Ritual, rhythm, the ruz, they're all there inherent in Rado. And then Tewas is also a rune of action. It's a rune of victory, and it's a rune of speeding action. So it's like an arrow going through the fly. So whereas Rado has that rhythm, just take one step after another after another, Tewas is more like the archer who we draw back the arrow and we think, this is what I want to do, Ansu, sun in Rado, and then the moon says, and let go. No, do it. Do the thing. So through this week in particular, with our full moon in Tewas, we're looking at really what's holding you back. What's stopping that action from taking place? Are you waiting for the perfect moment? And this is where divine timing comes in, and it's quite important here. So Tewas is saying, maybe the perfect moment will never come, or maybe you need to put the first ingredient into your cauldron before the perfect moment will manifest itself. But the important thing is to take action through the course of this week, even if it's small action in the right direction. So I've talked about the planets. The only other thing I should say is that Odin is in retrograde as well. Frigg is in retrograde as well. Odin is in Rado too, so that makes the Rado energy even more potent, but it can increase the loneliness, because it's this sense of, normally, if you imagine for a moment, we're off the magician and we're on the mystic path with Rado. We're treading the path of the mystic, and normally we can feel the presence of the divine with us. Odin is on that path too. He's back further on the journey at this point, so the road can feel quite lonely. And Frigg obviously is absent as well, and she is this divine force of collaboration, and she is in Thurisaz, so she is bringing up, and Candice, you put this in the chat box, you said I've been releasing so much old baggage, and Frigg is really holding that space for us. So even if we don't feel her presence strongly, it's almost like because she's doing that work for herself, she has gone on retreat to do her own releasing work, and she's releasing big stuff, on behalf of the 9 worlds, and we can feel that too. So any work that you can do with releasing is going to pull on that current that Frigg is holding for us. So Odin's journeying, he's doing his thing, he's treading the lonely road. We are as well. Right? So he might not be with you, but he's doing the same thing. And Frigg is doing the same with her work. She's doing that with Thurisaz too. So we talked about, let's say, when it feels like serendipitous, it feels like serendipity, but you might think about it as divine timing. Almost suggests there's an intentionality, doesn't it? That there is a pattern. Now, there is a pattern that if we know what it is, we will strike at the right moment. We will launch our Teiwa's arrow at the right moment, you know, and that will come through, rather than it being serendipity, which can feel a little bit less intentional, a bit more luck based in some ways, like we are attracting stuff to us, you know, at the right time. We're like a little human magnets pulling stuff to us, and probably both are true. But we're talking a little bit more about the Teiwa's force at the moment. But there is also a second piece of divine timing that I wanted to mention, because I think this is important and helpful for us. Now, I don't know if you know this, but it wasn't until 1752 that England, where I am based, decided to adopt the full Gregorian calendar. And the reason that they didn't adopt this calendar was that the placement of the new year as the 1st of January made no sense to the king who originally sort of adopted part of the Gregorian calendar. When the Gregorian calendar was becoming adopted across Europe, in England they were just like, we can see no reason in the cycles of the seasons, in the movement of the stars, of the cycles of the sun or the moon, or in any of the myths, you know, in any divine story, why New Year will be on the 1st of January, and therefore we will not adopt it. And I really like that. It gives me some nuances around the idea of the Enlightenment age, and the idea that science is founded on our own observations of our world, and that arbitrariness, we just don't really get on with it that well. So it's actually only been, I probably can't calculate this very well, it's what, 300 years? I'm going to say 300, yeah, well, you can let me know if I've got that wrong. But not a very long period of time at all since we have in this country been celebrating the New Year on the 1st of January. And I know, and I've spoken to got a lot of people in this community now, my own personal preference is to believe that the old year is slowly declines and the new year is born within it at the same time, and that it's a slow releasing, that it happens across a number of festivals rather than that New Year has come, you know. But there you go. So I was thinking about this in terms of divine timing being when we align our actions to the cycles we perceive in nature, or in the stars, or in the myths that have sprung from those cycles, from our understandings of those cycles. So for me, that is a second part of divine timing. And I believe that when we bring together our opportunistic self, you know, the part that I was saying that looks to attract luck in building Herminia, that would be called, or Megan, would be the Anglo-Saxon, building luck building, that attracts in serendipitous divine timing moments. And when we're releasing our Teiwa's arrows, you know, at the right moment, like this is, I follow my intuition, I'm following my instinct, this is the right time, might not be according to the plan exactly, but I'm doing it. And we are coupling those with following the cycles of nature. Coming here to Magic in Mind every week is an act of seeking to align yourself with divine timing. So, okay, so what are the energies and forces that are available to me that open me up to opportunities that I hadn't seen before, that open me up to healing opportunities that I hadn't seen before, to opportunities for growth, to bring my magic more potently and powerfully into the world that I hadn't seen before. That's sort of the point of why we are here, is to support all of our own divine timing so that we can bring our greatest good into the world in this time. So this sort of coupling together of personal, individual instinct and the larger cycles of the universe feels powerful and potent to me. So let's have a look. What did I wanted to cover at this point? Yeah, I wanted to look at I've looked at the Teiwa's energy and I've looked at the Rado energy. Now these are two of the spirit guide runes that we're going to be working with this week. And I can see that, Carol, you have shared Athala. Hold on, let me get my pen, which we are not covering as one of the runes today. I will let you know when I would love you to share your runes. You can share them in the chat beforehand, but when there's lots of people adding comments, I can miss them. But I got that one down as a Thala. A Thala isn't one of our spirit runes today, but Carol, I've made a note of that, so if anything comes up for you, I will let you know. But Tewas and Raido are. So let's cover them first, and then we're going to have a little bit of a deep dive into Frigg and Odin, and then we'll look at some of the other pieces here. So I've mentioned with our Tewas in this idea of the arrow flying free. And so when we have the full moon, this is a great time on the actual full moon to be performing magics that include an action that takes you towards the goal that you want. So I'm trying to think of a good example here. I've been doing a lot of work on hearth magics, a lot of work with my hearth spirits recently, and that has included a lot of cleaning. And I like to make my own cleaning products, and I put particular essential oils in them, and I can charge them then, and then it feels like as I am cleaning, it's a magical act. And there is an overall intention there around creating a stronger relationship, a stronger connection with my hearth spirits during this time. I haven't given them the attention that they deserve for a little bit of a period of time. I can feel them calling. A lot of my hearth tending work happens over the winter period. We have a lovely open fire, we have things that I can do there. But I often spend a lot of time in the garden during the summertime. So I was like, right, hearth tending now. And I could have done a journey to go and meet them, and some lovely, these are the speaking intentions that I'm going to do. But what's important is the action at the same time, and that's what Tewas is calling us into, is the action. And then sooner, well, I haven't written down the date, that would be helpful for you, wouldn't it? I can post them, but if you're on Birth Through Soul Journey, you'll already have that, or I should say Sooner Star will as well. You'll already have all of the dates for when these movements are occurring. So during this week, Sooner's Chariot will move out of Susan, it will move into Raido. So again, that importance of going out. And what I wanted to mention there is it's that little phrase, which to me is such a magical phrase, the let thought become action phrase that comes through, which is so in keeping with the magician at this point. The magician is just like, well, if you're just going to mess around thinking great thoughts and not doing anything, I'm off. I'm not going to help with that anymore. So these are the two planetary movements we have got, and I've mentioned that your sun and your moon, those two energies are very strong at this point. So one of the things that you can do is, if you know your own sun rune and your own lunar rune, you will want to look at them and say, well, how do they work with the energies of Tewas and Raido at this point? How do they combine? How do they support, and how do they help? The other thing that you can look at is your first thread, which is your equivalent of the ascendant, but it's the rune that you have as your first thread. So this is the rune that you use to express yourself in the world. It's the rune that comes first in many ways, and it's very linked to your magician self. So mine is Raido, so I'm going to be really enjoying this Raido energy, and I know the momentum is very important, and my magician needs that. Excuse me. But what I'm going to do in this live, because many of you will not know your birth runes, and I'm going to go into what I've just described in much more detail in Birth Rune Soul Journey group, is looking at, in the context of that expressed self, the magician self, if you know your Myers-Briggs type, and you can go and look it up, there's a lovely website, it's called 16 Personalities, you can go and you can find your Myers-Briggs type. This was based on the work of Jung. And there, at the very end, you get 4 letters, which mean your type, and at the very end, last 2 letters are a J or a P. Don't worry about the letters at this point. What you really want to know from that is, you want to know, am I more a planner? I like to plan. I like to have, the steps laid out in front of me in an organised, logical sequence. That makes me feel comfortable. I want to have made the decisions, even if I later change them. So that's the J likes to have a plan. They will deviate from the plan, particularly if they're they've done a bit of work on their stuff. But if they are If they don't have a plan, they're like, oh, I don't like it. No, they like to have made a decision. If you are a P, it means you like to keep all of your options open until the last possible minute, because a brilliant opportunity might come along, and if you shut down, if you say, right, this is the decision, you shut it down, you might miss the best opportunity. So for you, a plan is like the death knell of your motivation and inspiration, you know? And if, you know, you can have fun there. I live with a P. I'm quite a strong J. You know, we have fun with that. But the reason I wanted to mention this is because these things are important when we think about the magician, because the magician is a decision maker. So you can imagine that a J would be like, right, I'm going to create this beautiful ritual. I'm going to do it on this date. These are the colours that I'm going to have. This is going to be present in the moment. It's going to be all sort of organised, beautiful. You know, J's make master magicians, master ceremonial magicians in particular. Whereas a P will be like, I will wait till the full moon and inspiration will come. And I know that I will have all of the tools that I need ready for me. If I don't have a particular essential oil that I needed, that's because it was never the essential oil at all that I needed in the first place. A different one will come, and I will be in the moment, you know? And maybe during the course of the week, a friend will come, divine timing, and offer an essential oil that you didn't have, and you're like, this is the perfect one, and that's what the P is going, that's what the P is waiting for, and going, oh, you silly J, you know, you've gone with orange when you could have had lime. I don't, it's not the best essential oil combinations there, Maggie. But you get what I mean. So they're very, very different in the ways that they work. And I can see that there are, I've got an INFP, I've got an INFJ, I'm an INFJ, Candice. Yes, so you will know, this will recognise, and even if you don't know your Myers-Briggs type, you will be able to recognise what I'm talking about. Now, the reason that this is important is because the magician, who is the decision maker, is the enactor, is the doer, can become very rigid without divine timing. And this is whether you are a J or a P. Now, it's very easy to assume, oh, that's the J type. The J type's going to get stuck. They're going to be fully in, I must have everything mapped out and organised in order for this to work, and therefore divine timing won't work. And to a certain extent, you could say that, yes, that's perhaps true, that the J might close down to opportunities as they present themselves, and they might also not like the, let's say, like the lunar calendar that doesn't always align perfectly with the solar calendar. You know? They like to be able to predict everything that comes through. But they are actually very comfortable with saying there is a cycle. You know, there is a cycle that I want to work with, and the full moon is coming up, you know, and therefore I can plan that in the moment in a way that the P is not. So really what we're looking for here through this week, you know, I've mentioned like taking those actions, is what might be getting in the way for you of manifesting your fullest magic in the world, because you're a little bit stuck in your preferences around how you like to make decisions. So if you are a J, what I would look for here is something like, as you know, I'm a J, and you remember I was talking about the contact that I was like, oh, I should have reached out, I should have made the meeting, I didn't make the meeting, and all of those things. That's like, oh, I feel really guilty. I'm a bad person. I didn't do it when I thought I was going to do it. You know, I didn't. When I don't follow my own plan, everything goes horribly wrong. If I don't do the task on the day that I designated to do it, then it could be weeks before I get on and do it again, because the burden for me of not having followed that and the guilt that comes with it will weigh me down. Rather than what I eventually did, which was just to say, just send the message, just do it now. No, get over yourself. Stop it. And I just went into, now feels like the right time. And I mobilised a bit of my P there and just went, now feels the right time. And it was. She came back. Divine timing. That's brilliant. It was exactly as it was supposed to have been. Now, if you are a P, the comfort zone here for you may well mean that if there is a plan, you know, someone else has had a fabulous plan. Here is a plan, there's all the steps and they're all laid out, and I can do this. And for you, even if there is an opportunity that you're like, yeah, that sounds really good, I could really, really do that, you don't take it simply because there's a plan. You know? And it makes you feel stifled. Your creativity has been sapped from you. Your control has been taken away from you. All of the decisions have been made. And it's that releasing that part there and saying, okay, I need to get out of my own way in terms of my aversion to there being this detailed plan that I don't like, and recognise that I can still pull one moment of that out of it and say, yes, so that person wants to meet on Wednesday in 3 months' time. I can make that work. It's fine. No, let's do it. No, I'm happy to be pinned down on this one occasion because it's important to me. So that's going to be my challenge for you for this week, is to think about that in terms of your magician, most effective zone might be the planning zone, or it might be the working in the moment to craft something amazing and beautiful in the moment. Both work both ways. But through this week, just have a little bit of a push outside of your comfort zone with that. Okay. So, last thing that I wanted to say before we have a look at our spirit guide runes is I've mentioned that I'm going to do an extra live in the Birth Rune Soul Journey space on your Sun Rune, well, on your Hero Makers, your Sun Rune, your Lunar Rune, First Thread, and your Nornia's Gift, and looking at how the Magician can manifest through them, and looking at how the absence of the Frigg's Chariot and Odin's Chariot energy can impact on that. So I just wanted to mention at this point, because I know that some of you who are here are in Birth Rune Soul Journey already, that if you aren't in Birth Rune Soul Journey and you're thinking about it at this point, this year, 2023, is a great year to join, because we are still in what I call trailblazer mode. So there is still content being produced. We haven't done a deep dive into every single one of the planets yet. So it's still being crafted, and therefore it represents a very, very good investment. And in terms of what you get at this point, it's great value for money. So if you're thinking, I want to know more about my birth runes, this is the right time. This is the right time to be doing that. Okay, so let's have a look at the spirit guide runes. So we have looked at Tewaz, we've looked at Rado. Let's just have a little feel into your Athala rune there, Carol. So if you'd like to share your rune for the either that you're working with through this lunar cycle, or for the week, or for the day, pop them into the chat box now, and I will have a look at them and see if we have any that are align with the four that I have selected, as well as Tewaz and Rado. And then we will go through those as well, and I'll see if there's anything else that comes up too. So with your Athala, Carol, there is here, I'm feeling more a sense of a little bit of a tugging on, it's those sort of ancestral stories, and here it's sort of family stories about what's possible or what's expected that might limit the magician self in one way or another. And that might be particularly the case because when Frigg's Chariot is in retrograde and Odin's Chariot is in retrograde, that directive energy that they offer that sort of pulls us forward and says, yes, you can do this and you've got this, is absent. And those deeper energies, those subconscious energies, can come up. And it might be sometimes that you have two currents occurring simultaneously for us, living in today's world, incarnate human beings, that we have these two ancestral currents of energy. We have one where we have ancestors who were deeply magical beings invested in healing and seership and all of the things that make life a joy and a pleasure for people like us, who are like, go for it, you've got this, this is brilliant. And then you have another group of ancestors who may carry fear around this realm as well. And so you might have these two currents working at the same time. And to a certain extent, this period of time in the place of the magician is not necessarily about saying, I need to go in and heal that group and I need to listen to this group. It's actually about saying, how can we find peace and forgiveness with those two groups? That those two groups might actually be having animosity against each other. That's got nothing to do with you. Both of those groups are your ancestors. They offer their own wisdom, their own guidance, their own cautionary tales, their own counselling, their own inspiration, their own experience. But it can be that those messages become very difficult for us to hear because there's conflict in terms of the groups of those ancestors and how they weave together. So it might be that that's actually about looking at what could I do now in terms of setting an intention around being a stand for peace. Being a stand for peace. And then when we start to move into, I'm trying to remember where you are, Karen, at this point. It seasonally, looking at when you get into starting to do rituals for the dead, rituals for the ancestors, how can you bring that energy of peace very strongly through? And that might be what your magician is being called to at this point. Let me see. Candy's is saying, my hair and makers are definitely working overtime right now. Fayu, Ingas and Hargalas. Oh, yes, indeed. And I can see you've got a little chat there, a lot of Vanir energy, a lot of very elemental energy there for you. We're going to be looking at Fayu and Hargalas, actually, interesting. Not at Ingus, because we covered that last week. Let's have a little look, as you've said. Let's look at Fayu and Hargalas. Here we go. So, our Fayu energy. So, for me, this draws out... Remember that I was talking about we're working with the Tewaz energy of the arrow and drawing the arrow back and then letting it fly through and setting the intentions. And we also talked about being a magnet for Herminia, a magnet for luck. And the Fayu energy brings that piece through more fully. So it's about how can you work with your magician self to draw in more luck, more Fayu energy, more life force energy. So I can imagine lots of things there with beautiful Fayu altar, and then sitting and like channeling the Fayu energy through you, allowing that to come through you, doing the release work with the seed sounds for the Fayu rune. Could be really, really nice. Like setting that intention of saying I'm going to become a more powerful magnet for that Fayu energy, and I'm going to consciously work on releasing it at the same time, because as you know, Candice, that's so important with the Fayu rune, is to be able to fully release it so that more can come through. It has to keep in circulation there. So I think that's what is coming through there, is like paying attention to that piece at this time. Now with the Hargalas rune, for me this really is these moments of saying with your Myers-Briggs type, so being a J, those times when that wasn't expected, sort of saying, okay, how can my magician turn that unexpected moment into something even more potent and powerful than I had envisaged in the first place? So I have that, I've had that a couple of times today, where I was like, this is the way that the day is going to go. And then because it's a bank holiday Monday here in the UK, there are sort of a couple of things that have disrupted it, and the children are on school holidays and all of those sorts of things. And so I've had to sort of learn how to roll with that a little bit more, and to just let, sort of breathe in. When you get hit by the Hargalas rune, the Hargalas rune is like the change maker, the hailstorm coming through, for those of you who don't know Hargalas so well. It can feel like, we're being battered, and that doesn't feel very nice. And so it's allowing yourself that time to breathe is incredibly important. A little moment of self-care. Okay, that's not what I wanted, it's not what I expected, and that it's okay to feel frustrated about that. And now what can I do to shift it? How can I step back into my magician self? How does my magician stand? How does my magician direct the space? All of those sorts of things can help us to move from a place of feeling like we're a victim of what's happening externally, Hargalas, into we are a change maker ourselves, working with that energy, Hargalas. Okay, so that's what I would do there. If you are a P in your Myers-Briggs, then the opposite is true in many ways. It's like, how can I turn that sense of feeling constrained or constricted into this really potent, powerful container for this Hargalas energy, the crystalline shape that the Hargalas rune can represent. That it's sort of recognizing that our human attempts to create pattern, to create meaning, to create structure are fundamentally reflecting and built on the foundation of those patterns that nature has created. And that can be quite helpful for P types, and also if you know your birth runes, while looking at the energies there, to sort of say, okay, I'm not the annoying, constraining, human, mundane energies of this timetable or whatever it is that's constraining me are simply reflections of a deeper, there's something deeper than that that I can hold on to, and I'm going to trust the universe that it will disrupt some of those plans with divine timing when I need it. You know? So have a little play with that with your hourglass if you are a Myers-Briggs P type. Let me see. So the other two runes that came through that I drew from my bag for us are Yera, the rune of the year, and North is the rune of necessity. They sort of want to chat to each other. Okay, so with Yera, the rune of the year, again there is a partnership here. There is a recognition in everything that I've said. You know, we can look at it with, it's a beautiful example at this point, we can look at it with Frigg and Odin, like both being in retreat at the moment. They support each other. They are deliberately different. They recognise each other's differences as being strengths, and they look to work through them together. The summer and the winter are not in conflict, they are partners together. You remember, Carol, I was talking to you about the Athana runes, and it's almost that sense of, again, with ancestral lineage, where there can be conflict in terms of cultural conflict, ideological conflict, that when the Yera rune helps us to make peace with that and recognise that actually reality is based in the centre between the energies of different so-called conflicting standpoints or energetic structures, and all of the fun stuff happens in the centre when these two things revolve around each other and give way to each other and allow the other to rise. So we have that with our Yera rune. Is there anything else that the Yera rune wants to bring at this point? I think really it's a question for you. If you've drawn your Yera rune at this point, it's very much remembering that you don't have to, and I've talked about the blueprint, creating the blueprint, recognising that if you're on this point in the year, all you need to do is to add a little bit of weight. Imagine these are like scales to this part of the wheel, and then its weight and its momentum will start to turn the wheel, and the other side will naturally rise. So we don't need to make huge, momentous decisions in order for movement and momentum to occur. We make small, consistent decisions that keep the wheel turning. So don't get overwhelmed by thinking about, what do I need to do, or there is so much that I need to change in my life right now. For example, if you're thinking that, make the small changes, knowing that the wheel will inevitably turn. Candice, yeah, magic is in the middle. I'm glad you like it. It's very true for the Yera rune. And then we have the North's rune, the rune of necessity. And so this is very much about trusting your instincts. And if you've drawn the North's rune through this period of time, there are two ways that you might want to connect with it. So you could connect with it in the body and feel into it. You could do some chanting with your North's rune, and you could start to feel in the body where you feel any sense of, it can feel like a warmth or a burning sensation or a tension in your body. It's a little, because it's friction, it's like the friction. If you look at this here, it's like a one stick rubbing against the other to make the need fire, which is the meaning of North, is to sort of make this need fire. So the fire is created from the friction. So if you're in a place where you're thinking things aren't really going the way that I want them to, I'm not happy at this point, it's starting to work on scanning within the body to find where the North's rune is. And instead of then saying, I've got to get rid of it, I've got to get rid of the feeling, it feels horrible, it's almost saying to that place in your body, what do you need? What's the first thing that I can do to help you with this? And again, this is about small steps, right? Small steps to bring about change. And when we have that sensation with the North's rune in the body, it can feel uncomfortable, which is why people don't always like the North is rune when it first pops up to them, because North is connects us to our instincts, to our deep instincts about what we need. So it says if something's wrong, it's going to let you know. And so it's about body connection. Now, if you do your scanning work and you go, actually, pretty good shape here, no? This is looking at, we're okay here. It might be that the fire that is burning, that the North's rune has initiated, is not a fire that is centered or located in you, and rather that it's a collective fire that has been lit by another person, by a Valkyrie calling you to a particular cause, by Odin or Frigg, and that it is saying, in order for you to contribute to a need that is shared within your community or your family or your friendship group or on the planet, it becomes a beacon for you to follow then. And so you can envisage it as being, imagine yourself in the darkness and you are seeing that beacon, and then just start to feel yourself moving towards it and feel what it holds there for you. So it might be that it's a need that has been set outside of your immediate energetic body. It doesn't mean that it's not important. So then again, it's that same thing of saying, what is the next step that I could take to coming and being part of meeting the need that this fire, the fire that I see on the horizon, represents. Okay, so there's two ways you can work with a North's rune there, to engage your magician self in positive change. Okay, so Maggie's saying North is my sun rune. Pamela, hello Pamela. So you've just brought in Manas. So we haven't looked at Manas. We looked at Manas. I want to say we looked at Manas last week, or maybe even at the very beginning, because it's very much a rune of the magician self. You know, it is, when you think about like the divine human, it is the part that brings all of the other aspects of the magical identity together and says, right, I've got the perception and the knowledge and the discernment of the seer, and I've got the alignment and the connection and the ability to channel energy and to heal and rebalance from the healer, and I've got that ability to go out and vision and to bring in new ideas and new possibilities from the mystic. All of these things the magician then brings in and combines to say, you know, how can I be the change? How can I be the focus? So you remember we were looking at the Yera rune, and Candice was saying that she liked the idea that the Yera, the magic is in the middle. So we want to imagine that the magic is in the middle, that there's a little person stand. This becomes like a magic circle. We're going to turn the Yera rune flat, and as its two arms turn, it starts to inscribe a circle round and round and round and round. It becomes a magic circle, the magic circle of the magician. And the magician rune, the Manas rune, is right there in the centre. And so they are not the everything. The magic is in the Yera rune. The manifestation is in the Yera rune. But the will and the focus and the thing that draws all of that energy in can be the Manas rune. So maybe have a little bit of a play with that, Pamela. For you is that sense of, I do not need to embody all the energy. I do not need to have all of the answers. I do not need to have created the entire plan. I need to be the anchor and the magnet drawing this in, and then the Yera rune will start to spin around me. Nothing is off limits in terms of what is possible in that moment. So there we are at the end of our Magic in Mind for this full moon week. So happy bank holiday to those of you here in the UK. Have a lovely rest of your day. As a reminder, I will do another live in Birth Rune Soul Journey, going into a little bit more depth on the Sun Rune and the Moon Rune and Verse Thread and your Ud's Chariot Rune as well. So I look forward to seeing you there if you're already a member of Birth Rune Soul Journey, and if you are not, it is worth dropping us a line. So you can just email talk@meganrose.com and say, interested in Birth Rune Soul Journey, I'd like to know more. Because as I say, it's a great opportunity at the moment. It will be an even fabulous opportunity coming forwards in the future, but at this point, as I say, if you're somebody who quite likes being in the pioneer phase, come and join us. Okay, With that, blessings to you all and see you very soon.